Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first public meeting of the Police Collaborative Committee. And I'd like to ask everyone to join me in the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening again, everyone, and the reason why we're here is due to an executive order that was issued by the Governor, Andrew Cuomo, on June 12th. And that executive order is requiring each local government in the state to adopt a policing reform plan by April 1 of 2021. Collaborative is the key word. It would be a mistake to frame these discussions that will be taking place as an adversarial process or an effort to impose top-down solutions. Issues must be aired, but solutions must be crafted. And this collaborative process is going to include the review of the needs of the community served by its police agency and evaluate the department's current policies and practices. These policies will be established to allow the police to effectively and safely perform their duties, and in doing so, we again want to involve the entire community in this discussion and develop policy recommendations that may result from this review. And once again, we will still continue to offer a plan for public comment. The change is going to be hard. The change is necessary if we are to grow. The tensions that we all are feeling must be resolved. Order and public safety must be ensured. All of us here on this committee are excited by the possibilities and are most hopeful that this time of crisis will evolve into a moment of creativity and progress. It is normal to make adjustments to fit changing values and circumstances. So with that being said, I would like to introduce to everyone here the members of the core committee of this Police Collaborative. And to my left is the chairman, Steve Celestino. To my far left is trustee Omira Andino. Sitting down here in the jury box is Reverend Michael Gerald, Donna Brown. We have two representatives from the legal aid. Thank you. We have Robert Horn, who I don't believe Robert Horn is here. Yes, Robert, from the Legal Aid Society, and Tony Ann Gargali is not able to be here tonight, but she is a representative from the District Attorney's Office. Also on this core committee is the Village Administrator, David Burke, and of course, we have the Chief of Police, John Costanzo, with representing the union, the PBA president, Detective Steve Leone. And of course, if you don't know me, I'm Mayor Greg Luisi. So again, I thank everyone for being here tonight. This is a momentous moment, I believe, that we have, I believe, a really solid committee. We have people that are committed to this community and to this collaborative. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Celestino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we hear it? Good evening, everybody. My name is Steven Celestino. I'm a 64-year resident of the village of Tuckahoe. I served 32 years in the Westchester County Department of Correction. And from day one through the day I retired, I was with Training Command and teaching rookie officers, senior officers, supervisors. What happened? Oh, okay. The duties and performances of correction officers. I also wrote a paper at Buffalo State University with Dr. Curry. The paper was called Effectively Communicating with Handicapped Offenders. It is a program that is now used statewide throughout most correctional facilities. When I say most, others have implemented it in different ways. It deals with how to de-escalate. It deals with confrontational management, and it especially deals with people that have maybe Down syndrome or borderline educable that do not know how to react to authority figures. It's a privilege to serve on this board, and all I can tell you is I hope I do my duty well, and thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Steve. Chief?
Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, I want to thank Chairman Celestino and every member of this committee. All of them are very busy people, all have full-time jobs and working, a couple of retirees on there as well, but putting time aside for this very, very, very important endeavor for our village is so commendable. So I want to thank you for taking the time from your schedules and committing to this this purpose. The police department sees this as an opportunity that allows us to display and showcase what we've been doing for a very long time at the Tuckahoe Police Department. It's an opportunity to share ideas with our community, get recommendations, and hopefully move forward to build public trust. This is so important to us. It's something that we have strived for a very long time, and allowing us to do this now in a public forum, I think is a win for the police department and a very big win for our community. So what we are going to do tonight is just go over an overview of what the police department does currently, a basis for conversation, to open up dialogue and move forward from tonight's meeting. So at this time, I would like to ask that we get the PowerPoint. So just a little history of policing, that in 1829, Sir Robert Peel, who was considered by most to be the father of modern policing, founded the London Metropolitan Police Force. And he had very important principles that, just like our forefathers did when they wrote the Constitution, were the basis and a guide for modern day policing. And he said that the goal of policing is preventing crime. And if you prevent crime, it's twofold. You don't have people victimized by crime, but equally as important, you're not arresting offenders. So if you have a robust crime prevention program, you go a long way in serving your community. And the key in preventing crime is earning public support. Police earn public support by respecting the community and thereby winning their respect. His quote back in 1829 still is very pertinent today. He said, "The police are the public, and the public are the police. The police are only members of the public who are paid to give full attention to the duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence." We use those principles as a guide with the Tuckahoe Police Department. Can we get the PowerPoint? Okay. The mission statement for our department is: the mission of the Tuckahoe Police Department is to protect the quality of life in our community in partnership with those we serve. Our mission statement follows the principles of Sir Robert Peel. We know that our success in protecting the quality of life in our community can only fully be achieved with partnering with those we serve. And those partnerships begin first with people we deal with on calls, people we deal with, merchants and commuters, and we stop and talk to people at the park, and building up relationships and building a foundation for the rest of what we do. We build partnerships with organizations within our community, with the Chamber of Commerce, with the Community Fund, with different civic associations. We build partnerships with our law enforcement partners on local levels, with, for instance, the Eastchester and Bronxville Police Department, who continually we are working together in providing the best police services. We partner with other emergency services. We partner with our county partners, with the district attorney's office, with state organizations and law enforcement organizations, as well as on the federal level. So those partnerships are what make our police department a success. Go to the next slide. We don't have a laptop in front of us because we're splitting the feed, so I apologize if we're going to run into probably a couple of technical difficulties along the way. On the front page of our manual is a code of ethics. It is a creed that we hold dear, a code that we as police officers are going to be held to the highest standards in both our professional and personal lives. This is the organizational structure of the police department. I won't read everybody, I won't go through the whole roster, but just a snapshot of who we are and what we look like. I'm the chief of police. I've been chief of police since 2003. I was appointed as a police officer in 1982, to sergeant in 1988, to lieutenant in 1995. I've been a lifelong resident of the village of Tuckahoe. I'm a graduate of SUNY at Farmingdale, as well as the Westchester School District. My executive officer and patrol commander is Lieutenant Andrew Zarolnik. Andrew is a graduate of Tuckahoe High School. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice from the University of Maryland. He was appointed as a police officer in 2004, promoted to sergeant in 2013, and promoted to lieutenant in 2016. And if you look at the tree and you look at some of the responsibilities that he has, he's a very busy person. Lieutenant Lawrence Rhoda is the administrative division commander. He is a graduate also of Tuckahoe High School. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in organizational management from Manhattan College. He was appointed as a police officer in 2006, promoted to patrol sergeant in 2013, and lieutenant in 2017. And the detective division commander is Detective Sergeant Abelardo Bautista. He's a graduate of Suffolk Community College. He was first appointed a police officer with the New York State Park Police in 1994. He came aboard Tuckahoe Police Department in 2001 as a police officer, appointed to detective in 2008, promoted to sergeant in 2010, and detective sergeant in 2018. And again, if you look at the many functions that these gentlemen have, They are commanding police officers on the patrol side of things and detectives and investigators on, on the investigative side. Patrol division, breakdown of divisions. Patrol division, and the primary focus of the patrol division is the protection of life and property. Their job is clearly to enforce the law in a fair and impartial manner consistent with the values of a free and open society. Uniformed patrol officers are the most visible and have the most contacts with our community. They provide the village with a full range of police activities and that our citizens have come to rely on. They are the first responders to calls of service that run the gamut from a barking dog to an armed encounter. And it's often said that this is a sleepy little village and not much happens, but I assure you that we are busy. When we look at some tragic and near tragic events that happened in the village, back in 1988, one of our police officers answering a routine call for service was shot in the arm and the face as he exited his police car. And that was Police Officer Dennis Cristiano, and by the grace of God, he survived those injuries. And then just a few years later, just about 100 feet from our border, Police Officer Michael Frey from the Westchester Town Police was shot and killed as he exited his police car, again on a somewhat mundane call. So our officers are prepared for anything, and as they go about their business every single day, we just don't know what's at the end of the shift. So again, these officers should be commended for what they do. The Detective Division, again run by Detective Sergeant Abe Batista, is charged with the responsibility of investigating all criminal activities. They conduct internal investigations within the police department. They are in charge of records management for the entire police department, and they are a liaison to the district attorney's office and the courts. Another function is crime analysis, working with our partners at the local, county, state, and federal levels are performing the jobs of crime analysis. The administrative division is a one-man band. It's Lieutenant Larry Rhoda. He's responsible for the general management, direction, and control, and administration of technical services, including all of our technology, which has every year expands with body-worn cameras, in-car video, our in-car camera, our in-car computers, desktop computers, servers, electric ticket writers, radio systems, and the like. Staffing levels. Staffing is unique to each community and police department. They're driven by policing style and philosophy, response time, supervision, requirements, anti-terrorism practices, and community policing roles. Considerations for calls for service, proactive patrols, traffic enforcement, report writing, crime prevention, training, court preparation, and appearances, community policing, and problem solving. So we at the Tuckahoe Police Department are a service-oriented police department where we spend a lot of time on crime prevention, we spend a lot of time with our youth, we spend a lot of time on traffic enforcement. We have 2 Metro North railroad stations within our jurisdiction, very close by, that have very unique traffic issues related to them. So our staffing is driven by those types of things. The breakdown and characteristics of our department by race is that we have 29 male whites, 3 female, 19, I'm sorry, my glasses. 19 male whites, 3 females, and 1 black male. By ethnicity, we have 5 Hispanic males, 15 male non-Hispanics, and 3 female non-Hispanics. When you look in comparisons with other local municipalities and villages our size, the per capita rate, which is usually the basis for policing in figuring ratios, in Tuckahoe is 3.44 per thousand. Similar sized villages like Bronxville is at 3.44, Pelham 3.55, Ardsley 4.12, Elmsford 3.9, and Irvington 3.32. I believe the average in New York State is 3.3, including large cities. How do we recruit our police officers? The department actively campaigns to recruit members of the community to participate in the New York Civil Service Police Officer exam. In our area, it's governed by Westchester County. Westchester County gives the test once every 4 years, so we have a very small window to try to get people, young people, people from our community to get involved and take the test. The goal of our recruitment effort is to attract qualified individuals of diverse backgrounds, education, and experiences. Our efforts is to have a pool of highly qualified candidates from all walks of life to become police officers and the future leaders of the Tuckahoe Police Department and beyond. And what I mean by that is that we actively recruit. We go into the various segments of our community, and we try to get as many people to take the exam. And even though in a small village like ours that we may not hire very many off of a list over a 4-year span, usually the average is 1 to 1.5 per year, meaning that we average anywhere from 4 to 6 over a 4-year span. We try to get as many people to take the exam so that they could become police officers throughout our region and get them excited about policing. So we feel like we've done our job if we have police officers that become county police officers or police officers in some of the cities that don't have residency laws or requirements. So that's been our goal. We provide a class at free of charge that we fund to try to get people to understand what's on the exam and prepare them for the exam and to do well on the exam. The hiring process. New recruits are considered from a list established by the Westchester County Department of Human Resources. So Westchester County Human Resources certifies a list for us. They send us a list from which we have to take the top 3 candidates. That's civil service law. The next step is when we have 3 candidates to choose from, the police department conducts a thorough background investigation on each candidate. The investigation includes deep examinations into past employment, education, and relationships. I apologize for this. Visits and interviews with neighbors, educators, employers, co-workers, family members, and associates, as well as screening of social media. For each candidate that we consider, our background investigations include at least a 40 to 80 hour background investigation, depending on distances and lengths that we have to go through. Every single candidate is well screened, and again, it includes interviewing past educators, going to where their schools are, talking to neighbors, talking to spouses and significant others, to get a well understood feeling for what kind of person we're considering for the job. And then finally, the candidate would take a physical agility test, a psychological evaluation, and medical examination before they were appointed. And then there's an interview process that includes very thorough interviews with not only the investigators, but the command staff of the police department. And then the final step is a interview with the entire village board of trustees. The process is to ensure that the applicant is fit physically and mentally and possesses the character and integrity to meet the department and community standards. One of the programs that has been an incredible feeder program for us is our Law Enforcement Explorer program. It was established in 2009. It is for young people ages 14 to 18 who have an interest in law enforcement. We've been very successful in getting these men and women not only to take the test, but we have hired, I believe, five former explorers are now members of the Tuckahoe Police Department, but even more importantly, several more are in departments ranging from Atlanta, Georgia, to local police departments. So this program has been very successful, not only as preparing people who are interested in a career as a law enforcement member, but it also gives people who don't want to go into law enforcement a greater understanding of what we do. And that's been an important aspect of the program. We ran a test run today. It worked fine. So Murphy's Law. The next slide is just from 2006 to present date, statistics on use of force incidents. And if you look at the slide, you'll see that compared to all of the police contacts that we have with the public, there's a very low number of use of force incidents. And then if you go over to even the next column, you see that use of force complaints. So complaints by citizens against the member of the Tuckahoe Police Department for excessive use of force has been 0 in the last 5 years. I think that is a tribute to the men and women of our department, and hopefully is enlightening to the public. Again, there's thousands of contacts that officers have with members of the public, and very few incidents that force is necessary. One of the things that we do too, in addition to all of the training that we have, a great tool to us is that we use a use of force simulator. It's downstairs in our training room. It's a giant projection of different scenarios, and we use that use of force in both lethal and less lethal options in hundreds of different scenarios. And this proves a great tool to promote sound judgment in training scenarios that builds in de-escalation techniques. It requires officers to assess the appropriate use of force as well as increase weapon proficiency. It is very realistic, and I invite We've had open houses where we've allowed members of the public to use the simulator, and certainly invite any member of our committee to try it anytime they'd like. Next, we talk about arrest demographics from 2017 to 2020, and it breaks down arrests based on race. There's some changes from year to year. We include all of our misdemeanor charges, so most of these are misdemeanor driving offenses, whether it be driving with a suspended license or driving with a suspended registration. But this is a tally and a breakdown of all misdemeanor and above arrests that we've had in the village the last 5 years. 4 years, I'm sorry. The police department budget is broken down in different line items. If you look at the first 5 line items, that is the bulk of the police budget. In fact, it's over 90%. So of a $3.6 million budget, approximately 90+% of that is based on personnel costs. The operating budget of the police department is approximately $300,000 or less. And then when you look at the police portion of the total budget in the village, it's about 27%. One way that we try to, we're always trying to save money and getting grant monies from different entities. We've been very successful over the years, literally bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants for equipment and training and for special enforcement efforts like Stop DWI. But in addition to that, back in 2014, we initiated a shared service with Westchester County with Midnight Tour it's a Midnight Tour communication project, where on the midnight shift, which we had a very low volume of calls on the overnight shift, we transferred our communications to Westchester County Department of Public Safety. This allowed us to optimize our police operations while maintaining the department's policing style. This efficiency and the shared service allowed for more officers to be on patrol with reduced costs, and those reduced costs literally equal, in today's dollars, about $340,000 a year to the village taxpayers. One of the programs that keep us, I think, on the cutting edge is that we are a New York State accredited agency, and we are only one of about, I think, 20% of agencies in New York State are New York State accredited. And it is a progressive way for us to evaluate and self-improve on all performances. The program is comprised of 110 standards, and it is divided into 3 categories. First is administration, which includes organization, fiscal management, and personnel practices and records. The second is training, and it is in-service instruction, training for supervisors, and specialized or technical assignments. And then lastly, it's operational, which are usually critical and litigious occurrences, such as high-speed pursuits and patrol policies, use of force, things of those natures. I'm now going to ask Lieutenant Lawrence Roeder to come up and talk about some of the other programs that we have.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending tonight. So policies and procedures create the foundation of all operations in public safety agencies, both local and abroad. How do we do that? How do we reinforce the policies that our police officers learned in the police academy and have to be up to date on a daily basis from different laws that are changing, and also refresh their memory about the laws that they've learned. We do that with something called Lexipol. We got Lexipol in 2017. It's a web-based manual which includes all of our department policies and procedures, and it also is an interactive communication with the officer with both refresher courses, and then also gives them exams. We're able to track that, and what's nice about it as well is that when a new law is passed, Lexipol has their own attorneys in-house that review the law, they digest the law, and then they explain the law to us, how to enforce the law, and what the details are of the law. And then we're also answering questions regarding it during the training. It provides fully developed state-specific policies researched and written by subject matter experts and by vetted attorneys. Based on nationwide standards and best practices, while also incorporating state and federal laws and regulations where appropriate. All policies are continually updated, as we said before. Using the daily training bulletins, when each officer logs in, they also get a brief scenario-based lesson, and again, they answer questions based on the lesson. So in Lexipol, we have all our policies that are inputted into it. We have over 150 departmental policies, ranging from anywhere from use of force, which provides the guidelines for types of reasonable force in conjunction with New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services. We have vehicle pursuits, domestic violence, standards of conduct, racial and bias-based profiling training, performance evaluations, personnel complaints. So samples of these, this is an everyday, can be an everyday call for one of our police officers. And in an everyday interaction with the public, they're trained on these policies of how to respond, both tactically and how to deal with the situation at hand. In 2015, we were one of the first departments in Westchester County to obtain body-worn cameras, which is an accomplishment. And there's three words that I always say, and it's transparency, transparency, and transparency. When we put the body-worn cameras on our officers, from that day forward, there wasn't one interaction that our officers had with members of the public on whether it being a simple routine call or perhaps a criminal case. We're able to see the video, hear the audio, and see the interaction of both the person we're interacting with and what we're seeing as a police officer. We also have in-car video as well with the same company. And the in-car video ties in with the body camera as well. So you're going to see a scene of the officer pulling up to any type of call. And then once the officer exits the vehicle, they turn on their body camera. So we see everything from the dispatch call, from the officer traveling to the location, to the officer getting out of the vehicle, and then we see the transparent interaction with that member of the public. The program is a part of a strategy to promote public trust, procedural justice, and transparency, which our community has come to expect. They're also used to increase public safety by strengthening officer performance, improve evidence collection, and resolve complaints. I must say that I believe that was one of the biggest advancements in technology that the chief was able to obtain for us in that year of 2015. And body-worn cameras were just getting started throughout the country. And now it's almost every police department is trying to get them, and it's almost on back order. And we've had them. We have people call us from all over the place asking about our experiences, asking about our policies, and asking for examples of how to use them. And we have nothing but great things to say about it. Another way of policing that we've been able to obtain in the village through technology is our security cameras and our license plate reader project. So in the north end and the south end of the village, we've deployed security cameras and license plate readers with the newest and best technology, and we saved the village in doing so about 80% of what the cost used to be less than 3 years ago. What this does is it improves public safety by reducing crime rates and increased apprehension rates with evidence gathering and suspect identification. We primarily use these cameras for after a crime occurs to be able to see any type of evidence or fleeing vehicle or description of the person committing the crime. In addition to using them, the license plate readers project, basically coming in and out of the north end or the south end of the village, your license plate is scanned. And it's not scanned for us to spy or to be intrusive. What it does is that if something is wrong with your license plate, it alerts the police department, which is also monitored in conjunction with Westchester County Police real-time crime. So if a dangerous person is entering the village, and they perhaps have a warrant for them, and they have a warrant for something very serious, not something minor, or the vehicle is stolen, which we're seeing a large occurrence of throughout Westchester County right now, it immediately alerts our camera system and the Westchester County real-time crime, which is monitored 24/7 at no cost to the village by detectives all over the county based out of Westchester County headquarters. So they immediately broadcast it out to every police department in Westchester County and alert that there's a stolen vehicle or a dangerous vehicle that just hit Main Street Bridge. At that point, our desk officer alerts the police officers in the car, and they're advised of the vehicle. And what that does is it can prevent a crime from occurring, and also it gives us intelligence to, if a crime did occur, to track back and see when that specific vehicle came into the village. Again, it's been instrumental in crime prevention and solvability, and Westchester County Police has been a great partner to us. Another program we have, which is a cost savings to the village, is the Federal Excess Property Program, often known as the 1033 Property Exchange Program. What that has given the department, we're signed up for, it's a very intensive program to be signed into. There's a lot of security involved with signing in, inventorying your property, and looking at different things. And what it does is it gives the village and the police department the ability to obtain federal equipment at no cost to us. Now, we're a small village. We're not buying any kind of crazy armored things or any type of military type things besides our little Humvee out there that we use for parades and blocking the farmers market. But that's not armored, so it's just, and it's a great thing for the kids for school tours. They love it. So we got that. We acquired that for free with only 4,000 miles on it. Over the years, we got the DPW, an excavator and a backhoe, some compressor units, things like that. We were also able to get patrol rifles as well, which we have in the back of police cars. That was a total of $5,000 in savings for the village. So that's a program we're a part of, and it's something that I'm very proud of, to save the village money and obtain items at no cost. Okay. I'm going to go over a little brief video of an interaction to show you what an in-car body camera looks like. So this video is saved in a hard drive inside the police department, and unless we tag it, we have it saved right now for, I believe, approximately 6 months. And if there's no complaint or crime, then the video is washed away. We save the video if it's a criminal case or any type of interaction that we feel is necessary to be saved. That's not the one, but what we can do is show you. So this is here's the body camera. So I had Officer Costa, as if we were on a car stop with an interaction with a person. We didn't want to film a normal civilian on a car stop, but we figured this would be the best way to do it for the presentation aspect. So David, you can hit play. You can see the interaction with the body camera.
This is an example of our watch guard shirt-mounted body camera. Officer Costa, how are you today? Good, sir. How you doing? Very well, thank you. This is an example of our body camera. I'd just like to maybe see the inventory of your vehicle. How's it look in the back to show everybody and the interaction amongst us and see everything that's
So that was an example of the body camera, and as you can see, it's crystal clear, it's 1080p, and the sound is amazing as well. And they've only gotten better. Unfortunately, we still have the ones from 2015. I've been working on the chief for, but he says it's coming. So is Christmas. But overall, we do have a great warranty on them, and they honor the warranty. Anytime something's broken, it's free of charge to fix it, as long as we have the warranty in place. We have one more video of the dash cam of a police officer responding in a police vehicle to a call. So again, what's nice about our dash cam is, especially for traffic enforcement, when we hit our lights, it has a DVR that's built in, and it plays back. So most of the time, we're able to have the infraction on video, and because it goes back from when an officer sees the infraction, he hits his lights, we get to see the infraction. And then that's also becomes evidence for court, and which we present to the village attorney during the traffic trial. So that, and then it also shows if the vehicle is struck, the cameras turn on as well to show any type of accident to the vehicle. So we have both the interaction of the body camera and then the car, as we had stated before. So you get from the second the call initiates to the response time to the interaction. This is an officer responding to a truck fire on Yonkers Avenue. Luckily, the driver was not injured and was able to get out. So that shows what the vehicle is and the driver's observing as they're coming up to a scene. Oftentimes it's used as an evidence for DWI trials as well, because it shows the person, the traffic offense that initiated the stop, and then it shows the evidence of the vehicle perhaps swerving or doing something that would alert an officer to a person driving while intoxicated. So overall, the program we're very proud of. It creates transparency in the public in any type of criminal trial. It's been a great tool for us, and we're constantly creating videos to provide to the DA to be transparent, to show what exactly occurred and what we saw as an officer. That's what I have for my presentation. Again, I'd like to thank all the members of the public and the committee. Your presence here is much appreciated. And if you ever have any questions, our door is always open. If you want to see any type of equipment, you want to ask questions, look at stuff, or have an idea, we are here. And that's one thing about the chief has an open door policy. We're always able to answer any questions, and even any police officer on the street, we have all social guys and girls that love to interact with the public, and it's not something that we train, it's something that they learn, and being a member of the Tuckahoe Police Department, that's just the way we are. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Okay. Next up is Lieutenant Zerolnik. He's the patrol lieutenant, and he supervises the day-to-day operations in patrol. You got it? Okay.
This is a task I have every time I speak in front of a podium, and since I'm 2 feet taller than the rest of my colleagues, I usually have to start with this. So good evening. I'm going to try and get into the various pieces that I oversee on the patrol division. The bulk of it being training. I'll start off with the various formats of training that we have, because I think it's very pertinent as to the backbone of what we do as police officers and some of the components that you as the panel are going to be looking into. Oftentimes when we see that things go wrong in policing, we revert back to training. Well, where was the mishap, right? Sometimes training. So hope everyone can hear me. So I do want to get into that because it's pretty lengthy, and I think we could stand by what we can present here. For starters, I'm going to get going. Oh, there we go. Okay, as I mentioned, different formats of training. With the state accreditation, which the chief spoke about prior, the state has held us to a higher level. And with that being said, there's a minimum on training requirement hours. So 24 hours is what the state requires every single officer to have each year. No questions asked. We take that 24 and we usually double it at the very minimum per officer. So we have individualized training where some officers seek further advancement, and then we have more standard training where everyone would get the same information or education. So what I start with here is I'll break it down into the different components. And right here for annual training, we start with the unified format. And what that is the Westchester County Police Academy and the staff of the Westchester County Police has offered a collaborative component where agencies across the county, villages, towns, and cities can enroll in their curriculum and all train at the same time throughout the year. It's 3 specific days of training and a 4th day for supervisors. The curriculum is standard, so everyone will get the same thing, and it'll hit 90% of what the state requires that each officer meet, and then obviously some room for additionals. What I have laid out in front of you here is just a sample of the 2020 versus 2019 training, and you could see day 1, day 2, and day 3. Things that are relatively standard and repetitive or required each year: firearms qualification, legal updates. For instance, I'm sure many of you heard the bail reform and discovery reform. So those are something that we would be discussing on that given year. Anything that's changed in the law, all these officers need to be updated because, of course, it relates to what they're doing on the street, how they're responding, and how they're taking action. So they need to be aware of the most modern changes in the legal realm, and that's how we would receive that. Other examples: risk management for domestic violence, just to say, procedural justice, understanding implicit and bias policing, and then ethnicity in policing. And that was just some of the topics in the last 3 training days of 2020, just to say. The next component is what I would refer to as in-house. And there we go. In-house training. What we handle here at the Village of Tuckahoe. And we, as I mentioned prior, in addition to the 24 hours that the county offers with their unified training with other agencies, we have our material that we stick to each year and sometimes change things. For instance, we have every year in the beginning of the year, typically in January or February, we'll host our in-service training. It's an 8-hour block here at our training facility, our training room downstairs. And some of the topics that we went over, for instance, this year, just to give you an example, hazmat situations, responding to Amber Alerts, use of force, again, legal updates, and the 2020 criminal justice reform, as in raise the age, the bail reform. We too doubled down on the principal policing and modern trends and procedural justice with the police legitimacy. Obviously, the relationship between the community and how the community views the policing. So we thought it was an important topic that we discussed this past year. Additionally, just about every year we have a defensive tactics class, an 8-hour block by 2 of our state FBI approved defensive tactics instructors. Unfortunately, due to COVID this year, we did not do defensive tactics in 2020, but it is routinely every year prior to that. Of course, firearms qualification, that's a state requirement, and use of force continuum. And one of the other pieces that we add in, not annually because it's a big burden, it's a lot of work behind, but we do a response to active shooters, and that would be, we collaborate with the local jurisdictions in the town of Eastchester, the village of Bronxville, and we basically train over 100 police officers how we're going to expect to respond to any of our local schools or shopping malls, because of course, as you know, an active shooter can happen anywhere. Typically, we're more concerned with the schools. But we get on board, we get all the training officers from each of the municipalities, and we put in a lot of time and effort to prepare not only slideshows and things like that, but we have a hands-on part with simunitions where the officers are going through the schools, where the school allows us an evening or two throughout the community. We've bounced around to the different schools. We go in there, and we have similar, very real-like scenarios where we're going after active shooters, simunitions, we're all geared up, and the officers really take a lot from that. And again, we can't do that every year because it is very difficult to get everything together, but it is something we try and do every 2 to 3 years. And again, this is all in addition to the minimum requirement of the 24 hours. Quick video here, this is just a couple seconds. This is an example of our in-house training with defensive tactics. These are 2 of our defensive tactic instructors just grappling on the ground, trying to show you a compliance move, I believe. David.
Have to lock your legs around them. That will help you bring him in. That's how you bring him in, like Chris was saying, to be tight. So you bring him in with your legs. You're full control him, right?
Okay, and I think we have one more. That was, again, defensive tactics. This is a day of more, I think we're doing a handcuffing drill here, a speed drill, and this kind of just replicates fine motor skills and how the officer has to handle himself while handcuffing in an intense situation. And that's the goal that we're getting out of here. I think we were filming that on our body worn cameras, correct? Possibly. So that's just an example of some of our in-house training. Another form of training, more on a frequent level, but not so intense. Oh, that way, I'm sorry. There we go, roll call training. 2 forms of the roll call training. In a digital format, online program, as the lieutenant had mentioned prior in his piece. The Path of the Guardian, which is the Daigle Law Group, they offer an online program that we're enrolled in, and this is like 10 to 15-minute videos that the officers watch. We call roll call because it's basically at turnout, where the officers can take a few minutes before they get onto the street and get up to date police practices. More importantly, recent Supreme Court rulings and hot topics that are going on in policing. And these are things that they could do a couple times a week that the program offers. And then additionally is the Lexipol policy and the procedural updates, which the lieutenant mentioned. That's all of our policies in a software program or a digital format. We have training quizzers that is individualized to our program. So it makes sure that the officers are up to date and aware of the policies we have in place here in Tuckahoe, and it produces occasional quizzers relative to those set policies. And again, those are things that just take a few minutes here and there. They could do it almost every day at a turnout. Last form of the training on the department side, before I just get into the recruits, is individualized training. And that is where we seek some of the more specific training that officers can get. And I've listed, sorry about that, I've listed a couple examples. Of course, there's a lot that people can do, and I'll just show you a couple here. Glock firearms instructors or firearms instructors, obviously we're sending someone out for a week to master that skill set, and then they come back to the department and take their training they've received elsewhere to train our officers here in Tuckahoe. Our emergency response unit, or we have 4 operators, and I'll get into that in a moment, but those members have 96 hours annually of advanced training. Barricaded subjects, hostage rescue, structure clears, things of that, more advanced technical skills and tactical skills that they have. And those are specific to 4, but just to say those 4 officers every single year at a state mandate are training 96 hours just for their tactics. Has nothing to do with anything we've talked about previous. A breath test operator, so that, each year we typically send an officer or 2, and that's to learn and be certified by the state to test for DWIs and how to properly certify the exam when we have driving DWI arrests. Other examples: search and seizure, hidden compartments would be a type of school. That's, for instance, that's a 2-day school that an officer could go to. Traffic stops, officers enhancing their techniques for traffic stops. That's like a 1-day school. And these are just schools that are given across the county, across the state, that they seek further interest or education in. And if it's available and their manpower allows it, we'll send them to those courses, and it further betters their career. and it obviously enhances everything we offer here in the village. Again, just a couple more individual trainings that we've had officers go to recently. Principal policing and modern trends, a train the trainer course, and that's where we got into our procedural justice and police legitimacy. That we sent one officer to that. That was a 40-hour course, so that officer left for an entire week to learn how to present this material to our officers here in the village. And when we have our quote-unquote in-house training, that officer would have an opportunity to then present 2 4-hour blocks of that material. So anytime we're having officers instruct our officers, they've had previous state-approved training to learn general topics and how to present, and then more specific into the various areas that they've learned about. One last one, alert or active shooter instructor. So that was an officer that went to learn active shooter instructor response. And basically our intention here, what we're looking to do here, is this officer is going to plan how to get a large-scale response between law enforcement, fire, and EMS. So he's going to quarterback getting our police departments, both Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville, along with our town-wide fire department and our EMS, all into one basic training scenario on how we're going to respond to active shooters, because that's the evolving trend that we need to get, is collaboratively working together, those 3 first responders. It's a big undertaking, so we specifically sent an officer away for just a week of that training. So without getting too in-depth, that's a basic overview of, or examples of how we have not only department-wide training that's required each year, but further advanced training where officers may seek another 40 or 50 or more hours of different material. I'll now take a moment to get into the police academy and what the recruits are expected to do. This work is all handled by the Westchester County Police Academy. So although we know what the content is, of course, we don't have our hands in on these 5 or 6 months of training. It is just shy of 1,000 hours that they receive at a given class, both classroom and hands-on training. And then towards the end, there's an additional 160 field training hours that they'll get here at the village prior to us completing the full certification and releasing them as full patrol officers. Some common themes, obviously there's so much to discuss what a recruit is expected to learn over the course of 5 or 6 months. Common themes, de-escalation is a big one, officer safety, professionalism, physical fitness, attention to detail, cultural diversity and bias-related incidents. Crisis intervention, that's a big one that they touch on. Mental health professionals come in and assist with that. Clearly de-escalation is a part of that, and how they're dealing with someone who is going through crises at the time. Reality-based training, where the recruits are in stressful scenarios and they must use communication and proper tactics to deal with these realistic situations. I know more and more academies are pushing this reality-based training where it's hands-on. They're making the officers act on the spot. It's more beneficial than obviously just reading through a slide, as you can imagine. So that's some of the general topics, and I'll just briefly kind of show you. There's over 100 expectations that each officer needs to hit. Keep aiming the wrong way, right? And you can just see there briefly, general curriculum. I have 40 or 50 listed. You know, all the various laws, penal law, criminal procedure law, basic things like report writing and case preparation, arrest processing, learning how to learning a vehicle traffic stop, how to properly do that. As you can see, traffic control, DWI testing, civil disorder, sex crimes, how to locate a missing person. These are just the curriculum is rather endless, as you can imagine. I'm just giving you a general idea, and that's nearly 6 months before they are out of the academy, and an additional month and a half of field training with us and our field training officers here in Tuckahoe. That is a pretty good understanding of the various components of training that our officers receive here, both, again, out of the village and in the village. What I'm going to do now is kind of give you a little synopsis of the units that we have here at the department and what our department offers as far as specialized units and ways for officers to enhance their careers. The Drug Alcohol Enforcement Task Force. This is a part-time unit. It is a collaborative effort with local agencies, specifically Scarsdale, Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville. And it focuses on the sale and consumption of legal drugs, the sale of alcohol to minors and underage drinking. This is a plainclothes unit. It's an undercover unit where if any of these municipalities or communities feel that they're seeing a spike in this concern, the chiefs will get together and try and get the manpower and the resources together. And it's important to know because it really doesn't cost the municipalities much money, because we're kind of piggybacking off of one another and using cops from the 4 or 5 agencies to work together. And there's a municipal agreement where we have the rest powers and to do so in each of the communities. So the Tuckahoe officer can go into Scarsdale, Scarsdale can come into Tuckahoe, and we can work together with one another to serve the purpose, and that's obviously to focus on the drug issues and underage drinking. The emergency response unit, or it's essentially a SWAT team, as I mentioned, this is a part-time team, also a collaborative effort where multi-agencies are involved. Us with the village of Bronxville, town of Eastchester, and the village of Pelham. Each municipality has anywhere from 2 to 8 members that they've put forward into very extensive training, handling critical incidents, and the goal of this, of course, is only to have them involved in more critical incidents. It's not a day-to-day operation. So, of course, it's not used on a routine basis, but when those rare occasions come up, it's critical that they're involved, and it's proven that the risk of injury or loss to life for citizens, public, or even the suspects, it's more favorable and a better resolution when these specialized teams are involved. So we personally have 4 members of our department that is a part of this 18-man unit. It is state accredited. We've met a lot of requirements from both the county and state level, and it is an asset to have. Although rare, it is something that you would want to have if something goes terribly wrong. I keep forgetting. The motorcycle unit would be our next. There we go. Motorcycle unit. It is 3 outfitted Harley-Davidson motorcycles. This is a unit that is primarily out for traffic enforcement. Obviously, the maneuverability component is certainly helpful to get through the village. It allows us to do various target enforcement. One would think that if we're able to put a motorcycle off where you can't really see us, someone driving through on a cell phone, it's less likely they're going to see someone on a motorcycle off to the side than a marked police car that's in the middle of Main Street. So it does have its advantages, getting through the village quickly. Primary function, traffic enforcement. We do participate in ceremonial escorts, funeral escorts, large parades, and charity events. So it is a nice thing to have here. I think there might be a short video. That's obviously just the beginning of a parade in Eastchester, and many of the municipalities across the county do have these units, and we're able to help one another out for various reasons. And it's nice to have the help when needed, especially if we have something large scale in Tuckahoe. We can call for outside agencies to help us, and then we in return do the favor and go to other municipalities to participate in their events. Our traffic unit. These are approximately 5 officers who've received extensive training, specifically in traffic enforcement. The goal behind this is we'll send them out sometimes on a monthly basis for selective enforcement. We're targeting violations like DWI, unsafe commercial trucking. I know that was a big one. And we'll specifically have this group of men and women going out there in various locations where we see the offending taking place. And they're there all day, just targeting and really hitting home all the various violations, and they're producing hundreds of tickets alone on these specialized details. In the end, it's obviously keeping our village safe. The bicycle patrol unit, As you can see the picture there, probably upwards of 10 to 12 officers are trained, have a state accreditation, state certification as a bicycle patrol officer, promotes positive public relations, deters serious crimes, and more importantly, addresses the quality of life complaints that we'll have on the village, and really hits home our mission statement, and that being that it's a community policing based concept, right? So the police officers are riding around, they're close with the community, they're close with the public, they can interact with the young children at the park. It's certainly has its advantages rather than a marked patrol car just cruising down the street. Advantages of both, but for the bicycle patrol, we really like to get it out. It is seasonal. We'll do it spring, summer, and into the fall. So it's not out there all the time. It's typically in the evenings. We'd like to get it out more, but you know, manpower resources is important too. So we make the best of it, but I have a lot of officers that are a part of that unit, and they enjoy it. Our child safety seat unit, a handful of officers, specially trained technicians to install child safety seat restraints. They are available by appointment for the most part. We do conduct safety seat events once or twice a year. COVID put a damper on that a little bit this year in 2020, but we do get a big outpour of people that's parents from the village and spread out further than the village, quite honestly, that are looking to have officers properly install the child safe restraints, and it's a service that we enjoy doing, and certainly want to continue. As you can imagine, the list grows quickly, and not every agency offers this, so we do get a lot of residents from out of town that wish to have our officers help them out, and it's we try and prioritize to our own village residents, of course. Youth officers, 5 or 6 of us, specially trained officers who serve for the best interests of our youth and our community. They are the only officers by state law that are allowed to handle criminal matters when it comes to juveniles who specifically hit the age of 17 or below. That's been changed recently with New York State reform, the raise the age reform that many of you probably heard of. So if there is a youth that's involved in criminal behavior, these 5 or 6 officers are the only ones that'll be allowed to deal with this certain circumstance, and they know how to go about it, where they're allowed to speak with the people, specially trained, how to talk to the parents. Again, there's a lot of procedure behind that, and only these 6 officers are with that. They maintain a good relationship with the school resources in Eastchester and obviously the administrators of Eastchester school districts, because the village of Tuckahoe itself do not have any schools in our municipality, right? So we have literally no schools in the village of Tuckahoe. We obviously have children that go from Tuckahoe to Tuckahoe schools, but that's in the town of Eastchester. So the point I'm trying to get at is it's still critical for us to work with the other municipalities, because they oversee the criminal side of things in the school itself, but we want to have a close relationship with our children here in the village as we send them to the school, if that makes sense. DARE, oh, thank you, David. DARE, I'll piggyback with the youth officer. DARE, it's obviously a big focus of ours on the youth of our community. We have a couple DARE officers who also are trained specifically from the state, and we focus at the 5th grade level at the William E. Cottle School, and then again the middle school, Tuckahoe Middle School, and they focus on age concern issues, obviously, things like smoking marijuana, smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol at the young age of 5th grade, working themselves up through the middle school and high school, where we can have law education and topics pertinent to the age that they're teaching. And the DARE program's been around a long time, and currently Officer Piasta is handling both the elementary and middle school program, and it's been a huge success, and it really allows us to build the relationships of the young children. You got anything to say about that? We're almost home. Last piece I just wanted to mention is our community outreach events, and this one I save for the end because I think it's really important, and it really touches touches home on the partnerships and relationships that we're building with the community. We know more than anything, as our mission statement reflects, that the community is the police and the police is the community, right? And we need that bond and that relationship, or else we're going in opposite ends. So how do we do that? How do we break down those barriers? Is basically we try and put ourselves in situations where it's non-confrontational. It's not where, oh, someone's in trouble, so now here's the cop to tell me I did something wrong. We've gone an alternate route, and we really try and come up with creative ways to reach the public. And some of these events we've been doing long before I was even hired as a police officer, and they've evolved and gotten bigger and better each year. And I've noted a few of them. Safe Riders Day. We focus on bicycle safety that day. We spend an entire day in a location in the village. The youth come, they do a bicycle safety course, interact with the officers. We have raffles and games. We actually raffle off bicycles. Everyone gets a helmet. Really nice, fun day to be around the public. Another event we did over the years, Cops for Kids, where our officers participated in a softball game, a kickball game with families and the youth around the village of Tuckahoe. Donut Day was something we started a couple of years ago. A lot of these trends came off social media, and we saw the how effective they were, and we took them here to the village. And so the Donut Day, or open house, was started a couple years back, and we opened it up to the public, where the kids and their parents come for free donuts, and they tour the facility. They get to see all the things that the police officers do here in Tuckahoe. They get to see the jail cells, the police cars, and it's a big hit. Sanford Gardens Community Block Party each year. Sanford Gardens has their block party, and we typically will bring down some kind of sporting event or float where we can shoot basketball or something like that, and have handouts and really engage with the community down there and make sure that we're down there for smiles and fun, and certainly not the confrontational piece. Last one I have listed on here is the DARE picnic that goes with the DARE program. Each year we will go with the elementary and middle school to the Lake Isle Country Club. Nearly 200 students will attend that day. Obviously, pool and barbecue, our officers are all present to prepare food and barbecue for the children and really interact. Swimming, snacks, beverages are all handed out. And these are just a handful of the programs that we'll do almost on an annual basis to really reach out to the community and make community policing a priority. And before I finish, I just want to plug in that the Community Fund of Tuckahoe, Westchester, and Bronxville are huge partners of ours, and provide a lot of the funding for these events. We obviously don't have the money to purchase all the items like picnic food and you know, all these other items that I talked about raffling off bicycles and all these things. So the community fund does offer grants, and we apply for these grants upwards of $10,000 to $15,000 every year, and we're rewarded that money, and we apply it to these outreach programs. So I just wanted to thank them, because they're a huge piece of that puzzle. And that really concludes my piece of the patrol division. And Chief, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks again.
Thank you, Lieutenant Zerolnik, Lieutenant Rhoda. As you can see, we have two great lieutenants here and who lead the way. But there's 100% buy-in from every single member of the department. You know, and I thank you for your indulgence tonight. It was a long presentation, but there's a lot going on at the Tuckahoe Police Department. There's a commitment level that you don't see in too many police departments, where people have the buy-in that they volunteer their time for all of these outreach programs. Nobody's getting paid for that. Our DARE officers are switching schedules and working double shifts, really not getting a dime out of it, just an equal time off. These are the types of things. Our SWAT team, same thing. They train 8 hours, you know, and the payback for them is that they get a day off for that, you know, when the schedule allows. Nobody's making extra money. They're doing this for our community. They're doing it for the well-being of the police department and the citizens of Tuckahoe. So, you know, I'm really fortunate. I get to lead 22 other members that really have a commitment level that is outstanding. They do it the best they can for this village, and you know, we work with our community. As you can see, the partnerships are great, and we're really fortunate to have a community like we do have, and fortunate to have a committed level of professionalism from our members. So again, thank you for this. It was a long presentation, I know, but now I'll turn it over to the chairman and then whatever you'd like to do from
Yes.
here.
Chief Costanza, Lieutenant Zerolnik, Lieutenant Rhoda, thank you very much for that presentation. I'd like to just take 1 minute to recognize County Legislator Marr, who's sitting in the back of the room. He represents Tuckahoe, Westchester, and Bronxville. I know you have this type of commission going on now in New Rochelle, and I heard it's a very big project over there. Good, yes, sir, you're first up. Oh, I'm going to open it up before you start, sir, please. I'm going to open this up to the public for questions. The only thing I ask is one thing. This is Tuckahoe. I cannot discuss matters that are going on in Wisconsin, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New Haven. That is not within our jurisdiction. There is nothing I can do about it. But we are here to talk about the people in the department of the Tuckahoe Police Department. Legislator Mark, I promoted you.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, yes, I am Damon Marr. I'm Westchester County Legislator. I represent Tuckahoe, the unincorporated parts of Eastchester, and about half of New Rochelle, where I happen to live. Mr. Chairman Celestino, Mayor Luisi, Trustee Andino, and other distinguished panel members. Great pleasure for me to be here, and I thank you for your indulgence in letting me say a few things about the county task force and New Rochelle as well. I've got some information on that. But first I got to say, Chief, anytime you're giving away free ice cream and pizza, I'm there, okay, which I've done already. Secondly, little public service announcement. I think you mentioned car thefts and theft from cars. We had the Commissioner of Public Safety of Westchester in our budget hearing, it's a budget season, to come in and asked, what's part of the upsurge in what's fueling it a little bit, the upsurge in these types of felonies. And 80% of these instances, the car door is unlocked. He said there was a Maserati in Rybrook or something with the keys in the car, and it took off. So any event, so I first ran for office 3 years ago. I didn't realize what one of the benefits would be of running, even before getting elected. And I honestly want to say one of the benefits was getting to know this beautiful little village and folks I have as friends now that I never would have known before. Okay, so I am on the what's called the Westchester County Reform and Reimagining the Police Task Force, some mouthful like that. And so I was asked to just give a brief outline of what's going on there, and I can talk as well a little bit about New Rochelle. So what's important to know from the county perspective for people in Tuckahoe? As you mentioned, Westchester County administers the police academy for all the municipalities in the county, both training for recruits and in-service training. As you say, you can do above and beyond yourselves here, which I understand you do. And so what are we doing in this task force? I guess first we are talking about recommendations for additional time in these areas that have sort of animated or brought forth this discussion. The cultural competency, implicit bias, training on domestic violence and these disturbed individual type situations. And we're going to have recommendations that with regard to increasing that. But Lieutenant Alanji, I believe, at the Academy, is already buying into these quite heavily, and he may not even wait for the formal recommendations to come out for substantially increasing some of these things. Like some of them have 2-hour units that may become 2-day units. It's not going to increase the total number of days of all the training. They'll just, shorten some of the other components somewhere along the way. So that's number one thing you should know. And I should say, a lot of this, I happen to be on the subcommittee on community engagement. And, I've put forth Tuckahoe as an exemplar of what people are trying to do from my perspective. I think by and large, you've got it right. And that's what we're trying to pass along. Again, that's from my perspective. There'll be others who have different opinions. So the county police itself is mostly about the highway patrols, but there are also the police from Mount Kisco and Town of Cortland, which had disbanded their own departments. So we're doing a lot of stuff around, regular policing that municipalities do. And we hope, since we have a larger group, that what we come down with can be a resource for other communities, municipalities. We have, we have 35 people, I guess 35, 36 of us from all different interest groups. I think we have 5 of these subcommittees or working groups, and between the committee as a whole and these working groups, there have been over 50 meetings. And God help them, our co-chairs, distinguished attorneys, Mayor Bartlett and Leroy Frazier have been at all those meetings. So they're really committed to this. They've had experts, academics come in. Of course, there's also a heavy police component, both top brass, line police and retired police, union, Mike Hagan from the Westchester County PBA is an active member. And, I've talked with a lot of folks from other departments throughout the county, myself and various other folks have. We can access the work of some of these other ones, and I think, as I mentioned to Trustee Andino, that New Rochelle is very close to putting out their first draft. I think they may be the first in the county to do it. And the coordinator of that panel, I think they have about 15 citizens plus police department and city officials, happens to be run by a very good friend of mine and Trustee Howell. So we certainly have access to all that information. That they had several public meetings. The county has done that as well. I think we had 3 public meetings. We got quite a diverse range of opinions from the citizenry, as well as from the panelists within. So, it's a resource you can look at. We're not going to be out quite as fast as New Rochelle, but we're trying to get together a working first draft by before Thanksgiving. So that'll be out there. The other aspect that could be of use to you, and well, you've already touched upon the shared services of the overnight calls. We wish more of the smaller police departments would utilize that as well. You have the collective buying compact with respect to police vehicles. There is the portal for other types of purchases that you can use through the county. We hope there'll be more of that. The Chairman Celestino, you referred to your writing, and I hope you get a sight to that, to look at that with respect to mental health response unit. We're talking about having very well supported within the task force is some sort of separate unit. We work on a county or regional basis. It should be a shared service for neighboring communities. Our budget is just, as I said, our budget has just come down, and the county executive had mentioned that he was going to make some accounting for that, for something to be worked out in that regard. It certainly has been a prime driver of these kinds of things that you said we shouldn't talk about, or you said you didn't say we couldn't talk about. You said it's not something
Too many. Yeah.
can do about something that's already happened. But of course, we can continue to prevent that from happening here or anywhere around here. And an interesting idea I ran into within the panel and talking to people at Greenberg, for example, where they have a formal registry. They keep a database of incidents that they've had with disturbed people. And in fact, getting voluntary information from families about what these things can look like, how it manifests itself when the police arrive, and even information on what de-escalates that person's problem, what soothing things you have. Now, I know in a small community like this, a lot of this is in the officers' heads from just dealing with people on a day-to-day basis. And as I say, you have the good model of so much is important behind living here, growing up here, living here, or both in your police force, and just getting out of your cars and talking to people. I mean, to some suburban police departments, that's a big deal. That's something, this great concept that they never heard of. The other thing, of course, we're talking about is the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And that's something, in order to be effective, I think it's pretty clear that's something that's going to have to be on a regional level as well, county level. I think we're going to come up with some sort of format for that, so that municipalities may decide to have something like that, but on a less formal basis. If the county, if there are really serious allegations, the county would have this strong administrative presence with enforcement power and subpoena power to make it a really worthwhile review board, and with a portal, again, on the internet, where people could report bad and good conduct. It make it easier for people who had a good interaction with the police to be able to say so, as well as those who had not such good interaction with the police. Yeah, I mean, a final kind of controversial thing that comes up, at least controversial in some areas, like in my town, discussion of providing more information to school boards, municipalities, and the people about school resource officers who the county trains. And in 4 up-county districts actually provides the SROs. And more information about why those in some districts look upon that kind of development less favorably, a program like that, and just something worth a little more education about on both sides of that issue. And so that's basically it. I'm just here to say, again, we use this as a resource, another shared service. There's a greater number of people involved in meetings that you're able to do regionally over the county, and keep in mind, looking for services that you can use as shared services. And so that's one direction of communication. The other direction of communication is, the presentations were fantastic. Thorough, learned a lot, and I have a lot to learn from police in small communities and large communities as well. And so, yeah, it's just in terms of these task force, I think we should have a good dialogue going, just as each task force should have a good dialogue going with its citizenry. And that's a little longer than I thought I'd talk, but once again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, let's open this up to the general public. If there's somebody out there that would like to talk, would like to say something, would like to comment, go ahead, miss. You have the floor.
Hi, I take this off while I'm talking? My name is Kara Cronin. I live at 88 Maple. I actually wanted to start off by commenting on something that Legislator Marr said about the police officers getting out of their cars and talking to people. Last week, I hope this is okay to tell, one of your police officers, Officer Costa, happened to be on a call on my block and saw me and another mom having a really hard time trying to teach our 7 and 8-year-old sons how to throw a football. And he stopped, got out of the car, and came over and talked to us and started, taught the kids how to, throw a football, possibly saving my son's NFL career. He was great, and I just wanted to say thank you for creating a force that kind of interaction happens. I just have a few questions about the presentations. I hope that's okay. First of all, are those slides going to be available? Because were really hard to read. Okay, that's great. I wanted to ask a clarification question about the recruitment process that you mentioned, that you get the top three recruits, and then you vet them from there. Well, what happens if something is awry with one of those recruits, and how often does that happen?
Okay. So, yeah, civil service only allows for the top 3 candidates to be in the room. Now, what the Human Resources does also, though, is round the grade. So the top 3 candidates could be, theoretically, 20 people in an 85 range.
Right.
So it's not always just three candidates. So the whole process of screening goes on to narrowing the field of who may even sit before the village board. So if we believe that somebody does not fit the criteria of what we're looking for in a police officer, particularly in the village of Tuckahoe, that person, through the vetting process, would not necessarily get to the higher rungs in the process.
And how much does the recruit have a say in where they want to go?
So, no, not necessarily. Of course, a recruit could turn down any position. In the village of Tuckahoe, more often than not, the village board chooses to go off of a residency list. So we are picking Tuckahoe village residents for our list, and it's usually a pretty robust list. So it's not as though, we're picking from the bottom of the barrel. It's really the contrary. We're picking some high-level candidates. However, if that person scored high enough on the list, and he was also going to municipalities that don't have a local list, like a Scarsdale or a Bronxville or the Westchester County Department of Public Safety, clearly they could, decline an offer.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And can I ask 2 more questions? Not that I'm giving you much of an option. Can one of the presentations was about the body cameras, and there's just been a lot of talk in the media about body cameras being turned off. Is that possible, and does it happen?
So we have a pretty long policy on body camera usage, and it's public record, so it's not something that we'd hide, and I'd be happy to share with you or anyone else from the community. So officers know that the body camera has to be on in particular instances. Basically, any interaction with the public, there are certain conditions, whether it be a domestic violence incident or something, for privacy, that we would say you need to turn it off, or medical aided or something along those lines. But usually any interaction with the public, the body-worn camera is expected to be on. They cannot be edited, so it's a feed right into the server in the lieutenant's office, so there's no opportunity to edit any, whether it's in-car video or body-worn cameras.
Okay. But like an officer can go to the bathroom without having a body camera on, right? They have
Clearly.
moments of privacy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we've had instances whether sometimes an officer, in the heat of the moment forgets to turn it on, and it's not intentional. That does happen, but it also has a playback that allows us to see, maybe not audio, but we'd get video in just about any circumstance. And if we thought that the body-worn camera was done intentionally, left off, or maliciously, there are consequences for it.
Okay, so it's not something that just turns on, like when the lights go on, the camera for the car goes on, but a body camera wouldn't automatically go on for any reason?
No, but there's, as the lieutenant said, there's new generations of body cameras that probably address a lot of those issues.
I have one more question. So I was looking at the slides, but they were really hard to read. And one of them had a longitudinal progression of crime stats over from 2016 to 2020. What I couldn't really get a sense was if crime has increased over the last, especially the last year.
So the slides must have been really bad because none of them were crime stats. They were demographics on arrests.
Okay,
So
they were really bad then.
they were bad. They were good. They just didn't show
Yeah,
up
they were
so
just
well.
small. It
Yeah.
was really hard to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can share crime stats. They're readily available. In fact, if you look at all of our annual reports are on our website. You could go back, I think, as much as 5 years, and you could see whether or not there's been an increase or decrease. I could say this year, I mean, the tallies aren't complete. There'll be spikes in certain instances of crimes of vehicle break-ins, and as the county legislator said, they're really not vehicle break-ins. They're entering an unlocked vehicle, but there's been a pretty high number of that over the years past, and particularly stolen cars. And again, the stolen cars, as the legislator said, is more related to people leaving their fobs in the car unlocked and people just going in and stealing.
Turning them on and going.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Would anybody else like to address the board? Sir?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Oji Mangler. I've been in Tuckahoe since 1940, 73 years. And I must say, when it comes to Tuckahoe, I think I've seen just about all of them. And I want to thank everyone for the comprehensive overview of what you currently do. However, nothing's perfect, and I'd like to know from the police department exactly in what areas do you think you are not deficient, but could stand improvement at this point in time? That's one question. It's another question that has to do with scanning of the license plates. What dictates to you what license plates are scanned and which license plates are not scanned? And three, as the young lady said, I would also like as a copy of the PowerPoint presentation because my mature eyes couldn't focus on everything, needless to say. Okay?
So I'll try to do it in the same order. We always feel like we are always striving to improve. So where would we like to improve? And you know, we do very comprehensive training. You know, probably way above the norm. But if you ask me, do our officers train enough? And I'd say no, because there's just not enough money for that. And you know, we work with our partners at the county level, and I have to tell you, you know, unified in-service training, for instance, where we do 3 days of training, allowing our officers to go up there and not having us to provide instructors, saves the village a tremendous amount of money while educating our officers. When we do our in-service training here, we are providing instructors, but we're sharing instructors. So we're getting people from the district attorney's office, from victim assistance. We're getting instructors from other municipalities, so we are still sharing services. But at the end of the day, as much as we train, and we do a lot, you know, in my perfect wish list, I wish we had more training. So that would be, I think, first on my list.
Specifically, Chief, in what areas do you think you could use more training?
You know, when you talk about firearm proficiency, and we shoot twice a year with live firearms, and we have a simulator downstairs that improves our proficiency. But do I wish we were able to train, you know, maybe 4 or 5 times a year? Yeah, I wish we could. Our defensive tactics is once a year, and that's all muscle memory. So you're teaching officers how to, subdue somebody without the police officer getting injured as well as the suspect. And you wish that you could say, I had more time to go over, techniques that are very, I was a defensive tactic instructor back in the day. And, I went to the school, I taught it, and when I didn't do it enough, it's a lost skill. So I wish those types of things. I think, classroom instruction where, the laws are continually changing. And again, we're accessing, things on the internet, and we're using the web more often than not. And we're getting better at getting information, but those are the types of things that again, and it's a wish list, and and it's a balance. It's a balance what the taxpayers could afford. It's a balance, what other departments in the village needs are. So, the village, we are very cognizant of the fact that the police budget is 27% of the overall budget. It's a big chunk. But yeah, in a perfect world, we'd have some more funding for training and things like that. The second question, I believe, was about the license plate readers. License plate readers are scanning every single car that passes through them. The reality is, unless there's a want, in other words, that car is wanted, it's put into the system with New York State or on the federal level, that car is wanted for a crime. It's the operator is the licensed operator is somebody that is on a terrorist watch list or something along those lines. That's the only alarm that would be set off. And again, it is monitored 24/7 in the real-time crime center in the county. So if you're home late from work and your wife said, "Did Odine pass the Columbus Avenue?" We're not going to be able to know at that point. So that it is monitoring every single license plate, but very specifically, it's only ones that are flagged.
Also, does the ethnic makeup of the police department currently reflect the ethnic makeup of the community? If not, how can that be improved?
So one of the challenges, quite honestly, is we do our best to recruit in all parts of the village, but there's a definite emphasis in trying to make our police department look more like the community. So on the African American side of things, we fall short. We have one black police officer. It's not a lack of trying in getting our people to participate in the exam and hire. We do very well with Hispanics and females. We're way above the curve when it comes to that. So in a protected class, if you put them all together, we're way above the curve. Can we do better or hope to do better with black officers? Absolutely.
Last but not least, you had talked about the coordination and cooperation between the village of Tuckahoe, Eastchester, Bronxville, and Scarsdale, of course. I would like to know that coordination in this planning process, which was mandated by the governor, how in fact is that done, and do you share with them the results of your process? And is there any way to convey to them what minorities experience outside of Tuckahoe, in particular, in those other communities?
Yeah, well,
Scarsdale, Bronxville, and Eastchester.
Sure. So we have a great relationship. So the lieutenant talked about training. So we train together all the time. We back each other up on calls all the time. We share not only the narcotics investigations side of things, but the tactical side of things with SWAT teams and things like that. So we have a wonderful relationship. I think the key to it, again, and I'll go back to training, is that, God bless you, we go back to training is that, and the county does a wonderful job in putting all of those training aspects in place. And, I'm glad to say that our neighbors participate. Not every municipality takes advantage of that countywide training, and, I'm very happy to say that our partners do.
And the main reason I asked that question is because even to today, when I eat in other communities, and especially those three communities, I still don't feel comfortable. And I just hope that in some way that through this process that can be conveyed to those communities that minorities don't seem to be welcomed in those communities.
Again, I can't speak, but to them, or I think that's when you look at breaking down some bias on both sides of the coin, and more of, it's a nationwide problem. Not, and some of it is, it's real, and some of it is perceived. And that's, perception is a big part of it. So the perception on a minority in a community that, doesn't see many minorities might be the perception. And that's something that we all, as a community, have to work on.
Yeah, and Tuckahoe did go through that for a long period of time. When I tried to buy my first house in Tuckahoe, there were certain streets I could not buy a house on.
Yeah.
Fortunately, that's changed.
Redlined, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ooh. I thought it was going to be a little old lady voice. Good evening. My name's Lovely Billups, 20 South High Street. Longtime resident of Tuckahoe and proud resident. I love my village. And I also want to, I'm here as a great advocate for the Tuckahoe Police Department. Can you hear me? Yeah. Can I hear myself? Okay. Over so many years. I'm going to go with the most recent, is that my grandson, Max Hops Pierce, is a Harlem Globetrotter. But the first job that he had, paying job, was with the Tuckahoe Police Department. And he was so proud of, first place, that's the first time he's getting a check that he worked for. But also the lessons that he learned and the way he was treated in that department has made me even more an advocate for the department. No, not everything is perfect, so don't get carried away. But for the most part, I really am very proud of our police department and its protection of. In 1990s, but what I want to talk more about, is that the health of the environment in which we live. First place, in the town of Eastchester, Bronxville, Tuckahoe villages, and then the unincorporated town. Tuckahoe is, to me, the gem of diversity because we have 8% or more of, quote, minority population. Bronxville has less than 1%. And Eastchester is fighting hard to keep their 1.1%. And no, everybody else stay out. I'm going to address them at their own meetings, so that's it. But in 1996, a young officer, Michael Fay, was shot dead by an assailant in plain sight here on the Tuckahoe-Eastchester border. I was working and living in D.C. at that time, but I was home as much as I could be. And I remember coming back, and every bumper sticker, every poster, there was such a coming together of this community over the fact that this young police officer had been shot by an assailant. They were going to get him on I think, domestic abuse thing. He's in to stand his ground. And he shot him on the border of Tuckahoe and Eastchester down on Marbledale Road. The thing is, though, that the assailant was white and the police officer was white. And the coming together in these communities around that was marvelous. But I shudder to think right now if either of them, the assailant had been black and the police officer white, or the police officer black and the assailant white, what would we be doing now? How would we act? What kind of community togetherness would come like it did back then? We are in really very tenuous times, and we really need to think about that. Tuckahoe, I still say, hold your 8 and some percent minority community as a badge of honor. You are a jewel in this community. people who don't want minorities to move in next to them, you got a problem, then don't send your children to college, because somebody is going to be somebody's roommate. And it may not be the person that you decided shouldn't be living next to you because of their color. Need to, and I'm not trying to, I will beat up on Eastchester if I can get to one of their meetings. I'm talking about us here being very proud of who we are here in this community environment, and that realize that our diversity is a strength. It is not a weakness. It's nothing to be apologetic about. It's something to be very proud of. And we can be the model to which the others can learn. Nobody's trying to move next to Roger Goodell in Bronxville. Come on. What's going on here with the way we are acting? So why am I getting fired up about that? I am so disappointed with that artificialized back the blue valley with fireworks that was put in our community, Eastchester, Tuckahoe, Bronxville. We had major problems that all the big shots that came from all over the county, why didn't they have it in their neighborhood? Westchester not bereft of country clubs. I don't know why they needed the community-owned country club, and it is, even though they say Tuckahoe doesn't give much, we give what we have. And on top of that, the thing that's most outrageous is that the two Democrats who were elected officials in Tuckahoe were not invited. And those of you who went and didn't say anything about it, you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. How dare you politicize? How dare you politicize? But we don't like the police. We don't want to back them up. Is that what you're trying to say? Are we so politically poisoned that we even use something that's for our good, just to have political advantage? And I don't care what anybody tells me. I don't see any reason why that rally had to be held in our community. I just don't understand it. I know the chief of police in Bronxville. I know the chief of police in Eastchester, and I dearly love the chief of police here in Tuckahoe. I know all of them by name. The Black Lives Matter demonstration. They were so courteous and helpful and protective and just professional. What are we talking about here? Are we just getting lured into this wildness that's going on in this nation? Can't we just make ourselves the one who can stand up and say, yeah, we can live together, we can be good together, we can be bad together? Yeah, somebody breaks into cars. They broke into mine. A few years ago, I left my grandkids' gifts in the car, didn't want to lock it so they could get it, and somebody said, thank you for not locking it, and they took them. So, I mean, come on. I wasn't happy. But, I mean, all of this, if we could mourn Michael Fay as a community and not in plain sight, and by then, in 1996, there was no video and all this instant stuff, and we could mourn him, then you're going to tell me that we can't mourn together George Floyd in plain sight, strangled for 8 minutes and 46 seconds? Where is our conscience? I'm telling you, Tuckahoe, stick to it. We can be an example for the rest of this community. Stand up for our diversity, stay there, and don't put your heads down, and don't be, if someone can tell me why 2 of the Tuckahoe elected officials were not invited to a Back the Blue thing in the community-owned country club, please explain it to me. I'm willing to hear it, but right now it doesn't sit well with me. And it shouldn't sit well with you. How dare you do that? And Tuckahoe, again, and Eastchester, and Bobsville, I have no problems with you. I have had nothing but courteous. I had such good conversations with a young police officer in Bronxville for the first time when they had their rally. The chief was teasing me when I came out in Eastchester about being a football contingent or something with our police chief. I can't tell you how much, maybe once you get to be an octogenarian, something happens to your brain, because I'm very serious about this. I don't like it. And in anybody here who is proud of those fireworks up there, it was artificialized. Be careful what you ask for, because you may get it. Stop it, stick together, be proud, Tuckahoe. Thank you, Tuckahoe Police, for all that you do. Thank you for the village officials. Thank you, everybody, I guess, for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief, just a brief history of Tuckahoe. Wasn't Henry Norman the first black chief of police in Westchester County? There you go. Tuckahoe.
Hi,
Yes, ma'am.
Donna Blackman. I just have I'm not really sure if it's a question or a statement, but I work at Department of Corrections as a civilian. And one of the things that I've been there 30 years that we do is de-escalating with the inmates. One of the things is for the police department, do you guys come up to the jail and do any type of de-escalating? Because one of the things is we can't put our hands on them. We would love to. Get that off the record. I should have said that on camera. But is there anything that you guys do at the jail that you can come up there and do kind of training?
So the answer is we do not. The Village of Tuckahoe does not go to the jail to provide training. I know that they have their own training unit, as you probably well know. I would think that the Westchester County Department of Public Safety, who are partners with corrections, may or may not, I'm not certain, but we do not. We do our own de-escalation training with Westchester County Police as well as in-house here, but we have not partnered with corrections in that regard.
You think that's something that you guys might look into in the near future?
Well, again, as I said earlier, training is on the top of my wish list. So, if the opportunity arises, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to address the board? Go ahead, sir.
Scooter Scott, I just wanted to commend Chief Costanzo for your thoroughness in all of the things you did. At the trustee meeting last week, you had mentioned the upgrading of the radios, and since that's something I know something about, moving from analog to digital, the thoroughness, the repeaters, just you always seem to strive to keep the department at the cutting edge, not only in technology, but in the human aspect of the police department. I work long hours, I leave early in the morning, well, not now, thanks to Corona Doom, but I get home late at night. I'm often the only person getting off the train, and I see the police presence, and I'm never escorted, but I feel safe. That's my point. And that comes from, as the old adage, fish stinks from the head. There's no stink. All of my interactions, all the interactions I've seen have been courteous and commendable, and the heart that you bring to your job comes through, not only from you in the way you communicate, but in the tone and tenor of what I've seen in our department here. The fact that you have no complaints with all those interactions, it speaks volumes to the way you infuse your humanity and respect for the dignity of people into the people that you command. I mean, it speaks of a servant leadership, which I think is the only way to lead. And you're to be commended, and thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Would somebody else like to address? Sir?
This is our committee.
First off, I'd like to thank each officer for a terrific presentation tonight. We all know officers work very hard, and it's probably one of the most stressful jobs around. And with that in mind, I was just curious, I don't think we talked about mental health evaluations. You know, mental health, obviously, with the stress of the job, affects officers personally and in the performance of their duties. You know, PTSD is rampant in the police force, so I was wondering if you have a policy about mental health evaluations and treatment.
Sure, thank you. So we do participate, I feel like a broken record, with the county on their employee assistance program. So if an officer is in crisis, we have peers that would come down and help that officer through their problems, and then if they need further professional help beyond that, their referrals are through the employee assistance program. But we also have a pretty robust officer wellness program here where we there are incentives to stay physically fit. We provide medicals, so even just last spring, we had a coronary doctor here to administer stress tests and all types of physical exam through our insurance carrier at no cost to the police officer or to the village. So our officer wellness program, we do some, silly things like weight loss contests throughout the year, and obviously looking at this tightness of my belt tonight, it's an off. Can't wait for that to start up again. But so we do work at both mental and physical health with our officers.
Good. I'm glad you include the physical part. That's very important.
Anybody else would like to address the board?
We do have one person via Zoom that would like to ask a question. You can try to put them up there, see if it works. Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Jessica Slater, 45 Chestnut Street. I just want to first start by thanking the Tuckahoe Police Department for all the hard work they do in keeping this community safe. Thank you to the officers who presented tonight, and everybody who asked questions. I just first have a general question about the goals of this committee, and the timeline. So I'm just trying to get a general idea of, if there is a timeline for the work this committee is going to do, how many meetings we can expect, and if all of these meetings will be open to the public for public participation, like we're doing tonight. There's a number of issues that I would like to touch on and just see some discussion around that have been posed that I could bring up now, but if there's going to be a series of meetings that the public are allowed to engage in, perhaps it's not all the discussion that needs to be had in one night. So I just had that general question about, the agenda.
We switched the two of them from the 12th and this one to the 10th. Dave, December 10th is our next public meeting. Now, barring any catastrophe with COVID or any other situation, people are welcome to come that night too.
Okay, sorry, I just having it was very difficult to hear him tonight, so I didn't get a whole lot of that last comment, and I think there was probably a lot of stuff I missed in tonight's discussion, which is another reason, I'm just curious about the meetings, because attending in person seems to be maybe a better option, or, maybe the audio will be better next time. So could you just repeat the last thing you said about the,
Yes, ma'am. December 10th is the next public meeting here in the Village Hall, 7 o'clock.
Okay, and is there any set agendas here, or are we just, gonna be, like I said, I think there's a number of issues that deserve more discussion, and,
Open to the public. Whatever you want to bring up, ma'am, you bring up.
okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Chief, do you have any closing words or anything? Mr. Mayor? Oh, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Following up on Ms. Slater's question, what is the process for the following meetings? Like, are you having work sessions that are separate from these public
Yes.
hearings? Okay. And then just because I think it was a good question that she asked, what is what are the goals for what are your perceived outcomes? Like, what are you hoping to do and how quickly are you hoping to do that?
Basically, I'm sorry, I'm not used to these masks either. Basically, what we want to do is we want to get a general feeling of what's really going on out there, and then base that on feedback from the community, feedback from the local police officer. Chief Costanzas let me go in, sit down, talk to the cops, have a little. I would have never had access like that before, but now I'm getting a different aspect as to what the job is. I'm sitting down at the bagel place in Crestwood. Somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, aren't you on that board? I saw your name on the village." I said, "Yes, I am on the board." "Well, what about this situation? What about that?" Which leads to conversation, leads to more. And then you also have to remember, too, a lot of people don't want to come to public meetings right now for various reasons and considerations. But we've got to put together a big consensus, and then we're going to start, like the hammers of you-know-what, starting in December. We would like to get this wrapped up possibly by the end of January, as the mayor has instructed us to do. And, of course, I mean, I just don't want to sound like a broken record, but we couldn't do it without the help of these guys right here and the members of their department and the members of Tuckahoe. Tuckahoe, you're great. 64 years here. I don't want to move anywhere else. Any other questions? Any closing statements? Anybody else? Ma'am? No? All right, then we are adjourned.